All right. Well, here we are again. Take the summer off. And we're back at it. Afterthoughts. It's Kaylee and Lee. And then sometimes someone else and Kaylee or Lee and someone else. But we're kind of the mainstays.
Sure.
Yeah. We're the mainstays. So it's nice to be back. Nice to be kicking off a new sermon series. Nice to be having lunch after church.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah,
I always like that. And I like the variety of different lunches too. Although, I mean, I've told you 1,000 times, my favorite is the potluck.
Yep.
I can't help it. It will be ingrained forever.
You know, it's nostalgic. I understand.
It is.
Yeah.
I think I love casseroles. So that's usually what's at a potluck. And you pick a casserole, I probably love it.
There you go.
Yeah, that's my mom made. Here we are. So we started practicing the way course, which is different than practicing the way book as far as those really go into the practices very specifically.
Yeah.
And this is more of a spiritual formation overview. So it really does, it starts right off the hop here with the way, following Jesus. What does a disciple even mean? So there was 3 things in the course, right? It's like be with Jesus.
Become like Jesus.
Become like Jesus and do as Jesus did. In some ways, I think for me, as I think about, explaining disciple, and I've heard, the whole, this is what rabbis were like back in the day in the culture. And I've heard, and that was pretty formational for me, even as a young pastor, and heard it way back in the early 2000s for the first time. What I liked about this is it really, those 3 statements again of becoming like him, being with and doing as he did really does actually break it down simply of this is what it is. And it's what it's always been. Yeah. So that's what we talked about in a nutshell.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I really love the picture of apprenticeship. It's a tricky word. It's interesting because whenever I hear the word apprentice, I also feel like it gives it, it's beautiful. Like there's something rich about that word. There's something historical about it. It's very clear as to what it is. There's a distinguished feeling to it where you go, I'm apprenticing someone. Like you're intentionally choosing to learn from somebody, right?
Yep.
And so honestly, I just want to kind of jump in, but the first question I would ask would be around that first thought of being with Jesus. The first question I would ask is, when you hear the words, be with Jesus, what do you picture?
That's actually that's a new learning for me. As funny as it sounds, because I've been walking with Jesus a long time. Even as I was saying, I've been walking with Jesus since I was born. It feels like, right? And it is only really in the last year that this idea of I can, even in my personality and squirrel brain and all the things, to be quiet, to be still, and actually be in his presence. For me, being with Jesus before was academic, but it was also real. I would never said it wasn't real. It just never went past the mind to a certain degree a lot of times. Music would take me to the heart, which was good.
Right.
But learning to stop the mind for a moment and just be with. That's a tough one for me. And I know that I'm not alone in that. I think it's Western learning versus Eastern learning. Yeah. Right? There's a bit of a push there. So,
yeah. I mean, when you unpack it, you talk about, how Jesus withdrew. There's that verse that it references even in the course itself. It talks about, I'm going to misquote it, so forgive me, but when you pray, close the door, go into your room, and what is done in the unseen will be rewarded by your Father. And I forget where I know this from. I don't know if it's a knowing or someone taught it. I don't remember. But the reality that the reward of that is him. It's not...
Right. Yes.
It's not the checklist of, I went into my room and I closed the door and I prayed. Check. God's going to give me a reward later sometime. it's the reward is the engaging with his presence and him, like being with him and knowing, oh my goodness, I was just with him in a way that was palpable. Like, so I think that's why I like that question so much. When you hear the words, be with Jesus, what do you picture? I think that can be a great step stool for what it then looks like for you to pursue being with him.
Well, and I think too, because these afterthoughts are a way for small groups or even individually to go a little bit deeper than maybe our table groups after church, right? So like an opportunity to share with others where you have met Jesus and been with him, and it's been significant to share some of those stories.
Yeah.
There might be some commonality or some new things that come out of that.
Yeah.
But then also I think share your frustration of like, I wanted to be with and it felt alone. Like, and that's okay to share that.
Yeah.
That's okay to be vulnerable in that way. That's happened to me even in June of this year. I went to be with and felt alone, but that was good. There was good in that even. So yeah, good to share that.
As we look at becoming like Jesus, I looked up the word become because I like looking up words. I like to be prepared.
You are prepared.
And I thought it was really cool. It's really simply defined as to undergo development or change.
To undergo change.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I just thought it would be cool in our groups or to yourself think through, but share an area of your life that you feel like you're becoming. Where are you being developed right now into the likeness of Jesus? And I would encourage you that you're not bragging. You're not get that weird.
Yeah, where you've seen change. Just say this is where it's changed. I was this and now I'm this.
Or right now I'm in the middle of this. And I think sometimes we, especially as we age, and I know I'm not old, but no, but do you know what I mean? Like there's this thing that it almost gets harder and harder to admit that you're changing, that you're growing, that you're still learning things. Because the older you get, the more you feel like you should have arrived by now. And so it doesn't like take that off the table and just go,
agreed. Yeah.
Like, where are you right now being developed? Where are you becoming like Jesus? It would be really cool. And if you can't see it, especially if you're in a group setting, I would say that you've known for a while, ask them. Like take that as a moment. Like you can pivot it and go, okay,
there's a bit of a risk there, but it's worth doing.
Let's edify one another and go, I see you becoming like Jesus in this way. Sometimes we need to be seen by other people in that. So you could do that too.
Agreed. Yeah, that's good.
And then finally, do as Jesus did. I mean, that could be, all of these they will get fleshed out more and more. But this one for me, it caught me in something you worded actually. So this is a bit of a distracted spin, but you said this doesn't just refer to miracles and preaching. And that stopped me in my tracks because I was like, whoa, just miracles, just preaching. It made me think in our church, like in our church culture, right? Is it fair to suggest that we can put those two things on a pedestal and go, oh, but that's that's
only for Jesus.
That's only for Jesus, or that's only for the super special or the whatever.
The apostles and Jesus, they could do miracles.
Yeah. And so then I thought, but I do know, I've talked to enough of our church now to know that there are quiet wells in our congregation. And so I think it would be cool in your group to share a time where you either witnessed a miracle or you experienced a miracle. Even if it was years ago and you're like, and I haven't seen one since, whatever it is, whatever the context is, when we bear witness to something we've seen Christ do, either through us or around us, there's something significant that happens spiritually when we name it and when it causes an edification in the room that I think is really cool. So if you're willing.
Well, and the one thing that comes to mind for me right now, even as you're talking about that, is, the reason that the apostles, for instance, could do all the things as Jesus did is because they spent a lot of time with him, and they spent a lot of time becoming like him, which then allowed them to do the things that he did. And I wonder, in our culture, especially in church culture, we kind of grow up and maybe we don't have a long-standing habit of being with Jesus.
Yeah.
And we haven't spent a lot of time really working on those things that do need to be changed and transformed. And so we don't become like him.
Yeah.
But we've gotten into the rhythm of trying to do the things he's done.
Right.
And then we burn out, or we find it frustrating, or it's not working, or we're not seeing things, and we're like it's kind of disastrous.
Yeah. And it becomes product related.
Right. Like, here's my product, right? And because we missed the first two steps, right? Or we spend a lot of time with Jesus. I think just that first one, if you're finding yourself stuck, if you're in that place of like, I've been stuck in my faith for a long time, I think that's where you spend your time.
Yeah.
Like be there, because out of there, the well of becoming like him, it's inevitable. It will be the inevitable byproduct of, I've spent a lot of time with Jesus lately. I've been doing things. I actually stopped doing things. I'm going to just be with. Yeah. And that out of that byproduct comes becoming. And out of the becoming, the byproduct is I can't help but do. Yeah. Right? Like they do flow. And when we try and skip steps, or we try to get ahead, that's where some of our frustration and even some of our own wounding comes from, I think, is we do long before we've become. And so we need to be careful. Yeah. But it doesn't need to be to the extreme of it, of until you're perfect, you can't serve. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that I think this is a cycle that happens a lot. And I think even for me, the fruit of spending time with has surprised me of how much change there's been, even for me, when I thought at 50, I should be in my prime of walking with Jesus, especially after all this time, and in leadership and all those things, and going, oh, I just scratched the surface. I get to start again. And then it's exciting. It's an exciting journey. So I'm excited for this whole spiritual formation piece. Cool. And it starts here. Starts at ground zero of just be with Jesus.
I love it.
Yeah.
I wanted to give a quick nod. It's not a question, but just if you were with us on Sunday, which we're assuming, I think that you were, or you tuned in. If you tuned in online, you won't be able to, you'll have to go online to find it. But if you were in service on Sunday, you would have hopefully received a practice booklet on the way out the door.
They would have watched a video about the practice.
Oh, yes, they would have watched a video about a practice. Yep. You did. I mean, we did this already. It already happened. You watched a video about the practice, and on your way out the door, you would have received a booklet. And that's another thing that maybe you can even share with your group. You know, if you've walked through that, it's talking about developing a daily prayer rhythm. It'd be really cool to kind of unpack that as a group a little bit further too. Yeah. Where your struggles are, where your successes are, when do you do it? How do you do it? What are some of the varieties in which ways you do it? I love that Pastor Ken just talks about like all the varieties of like, hey, when you're making your coffee or tea in the morning, that's when it starts. I love it. He's like, I go take a walk for my golden retriever, which I'm like, I have a golden retriever. I could just copy him and what he does. You could. Bree would like that, and so would my dog. But I think I would find that distracting. So I think I'll just do the coffee in quiet place. There you go. Yeah. Nice. All right. Thanks for leading us. Yeah. You bet. See you guys. Bye.